Okay, in order to do a 1 up, 2 down heel, you need to stop with the yarn carrier in front of you at about the 5 o'clock position. You're going to raise all of the needles on the back half of the cylinder. Then you're going to lower the first needle on each side. Crank forward until you hear the last little click. Right there it was. Engage the heel spring. Raise the first 2 needles. Then you're going to pinch and pull on the front half of the fabric, just the front half. Raise these 2 needles. Raise 1 needle at a time. Raise the needle. Raise the needle. I'm still pinching and pulling this side of the fabric downward. Raise this needle. Raise this needle. It's important to go slow to make sure that these 2 stitches knit, because that's where you're going to drop your stitches. We continue raising 1 needle at a time, cranking a row, raise 1 needle. I'm still pinching and pulling just on this side of the fabric. But now I can see that my yarn is not seated against the cylinder properly. That means it's time to install some sort of a heel weight. I'm going to use the V-hook in this demonstration. And I'm going to place the V-hook. I like to go in 3 needles and down. In 3 needles and down. I'm not pulling it apart and I'm not squeezing it together. And the way I know that my heel weight or the heel fork is placed properly is when I pull down, all these stitches become seated against the cylinder. I need to raise that needle, come back around, raise this needle, come back around, raise this needle. Now, did you see how I did that? I was just seating those stitches against the against the cylinder, because the yarn is starting to ride up. And that tells me it's time to move my heel fork. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise it up and I'm squeezing it together slightly. Put the pressure on and I can see that I've got the right downward pressure. Raise 1 needle. Raise this needle. Now I'm right next to my target needle. So I'm going to raise this needle. Come back around. Now I've raised this target needle. That simply means when I raise this target needle, I'm going to push the 2 opposite ones down. Put this weight in my heel fork. I'm also going to place my heel fork as high up as I can, and I'm squeezing it together with my hands. And I'm going to put it right up here so that I get all this downward pressure right here. I should not have to move that again if I get it in the right place when I'm starting my increase. So I've raised this needle, I've lowered these 2, and I'm going to crank around. I raise this needle, lower these 2. That's why they call it the 1 up and 2 down method. 1 up, 2 down. 1 up, 2 down. Very important when I push these needles down that I push them down but not all the way down. If I push them all the way down, that's going to make those latches close. So if I push them too far, I just lift them up. And now I'm going to knit this row. Raise 1, lower 2. Raise 1, lower 2. Raise 1, lower 2. 1, lower 2. Raise 1, lower 2. Raise 1, lower 2. Raise 1, lower 2. Raise one, lower two. Raise one, lower two. One, lower two. Raise one, lower two. Lower these two. I know I'm coming up to the end here, but right now I'm still raising one and lowering two. I'm going to raise this one. I'm going to lower these two. Raise this one, lower these two, and then it'll be time to put all the needles back to work. I'm again pushing them down, but not all the way down. And then I'm going to check and double check to make sure that all of my needles have open latches. I'm going to release the heel spring. And I'm going to crank forward slowly for this first row. I forgot to reset my counter. And I'm going to crank the length of the foot. Now to make a toe, we're going to stop with the yarn carrier at the 5 o'clock position. We're going to raise all the needles in the back. And we're going to not lower the first two because this is how it differs for the toe. We're just going to keep those up. So you've got half the needles in work and half the needles out of work. You crank forward until you hear the last little click. Engage your heel spring. Raise the first needle. Raise this needle. Still raising one needle at a time. Still using the pinch and pull method. My yarn's riding up, so it is time for me to install my V-hook. Extra pull down so I can make it all the way. I'm raising my target needle. I'm going to lower these two. Remember not to push them so far down that the latches go closed. Raise one on this side, lower two on that side. Raise one, lower two. 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 We're gonna not raise this one. We're gonna lower these two. That's the difference in the heel and the toe. Okay. crank that last row. Now then you're going to snip the yarn, leaving a long enough tail to Kitchener the sock closed. Going to place the tail down inside the tube. Get your waste yarn. You're going to place your yarn carrier. You're going to swing it around. See, it's not in work, and you're going to swing it around to where the hole is right in between the first out of work and the first in work needle. Thread the waste yarn. Let the tail drop into the center, and we're going to crank forward and stop at the 5 o'clock position and put all of the needles back into play. Now, please notice that when you do it this way, you're going to have a little hole right here and a little hole right there. See my little, I'll show you. That right there, you will close that when you do your Kitchener stitch.